Well, hi, folks. I want to take just a little bit of time as we wind down this year just to look a little bit at 2022, but mostly really to look forward to 2023. I want to share with you just a few things that I'm hoping for myself, and I'm hoping also for my family, our church family. Things that I'm really excited looking forward to in this next year. But as I reflect on 2022 and I look back at the events of the last 12 months or so, it's really not, a lot of it is not how I would have written out my year if I was to come up with my own plan. In many ways, it was actually kind of even a harder year for me than 2021 or 2020, and that's really saying quite a lot. Not in every single way, obviously, but in a lot of ways, it was a tougher year than even the 2 years before that. But I know that nothing has come into my life that hasn't come through the sovereign hand and plan of God. And I've become, especially in this last year, I think, I've become very accepting of that. I've been careful not to really use the word content with that because I'm still growing a lot in contentment, but I've become very accepting of the idea, the truth, the reality that everything that has gone on in the last year, 2 years, 3 years has been from the hand of God. Doesn't mean that all those things are good necessarily, obviously, but I know that they have come from the hand of God. And as much as I wouldn't have chosen many of those things, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that God is the one who has done it. And it's been for many reasons that he has done the various things that he has done. And I don't see a lot of the reasons why. I might not ever see the reasons why a lot of these things have happened, but I'm also very grateful because I have seen a lot of his work in my life. I've seen many of the reasons for various things that have happened over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, even amidst pains and sorrows and hardships, and I might even say especially amidst those pains and sorrows and hardships. And God has not only just been faithful to me, but he's shown and proven even his faithfulness. He has provided all that I need over this last year, even in some of my darkest and most trying and discouraging times where I just felt like I was just at the bottom of a pit. I can look around and even though those times are so dark and so difficult and challenging and confusing and disorienting and really just so challenging, I can look around and see so much of God's provision, his grace, his gifts to me. I look around and I see the many people, for instance, the many people that he's brought into my life who've been right there as I've gone through all these things. They've been there in the midst of a lot of these dark sorrows and sadnesses and pains, and they've just been patiently enduring with me, encouraging me, holding my arms up when I'm just at the end of myself. I also just see the innumerable gospel truths that he's given to all of us. Those truths became just life source for me in ways that they never had been before. Christ became so much bigger, so much better, so much more beautiful and life-giving than I had ever experienced him before in my life. And he's been deepening my trust and my joy in him, the peace that I have amidst all of this difficulty, this chaos, this kind of upside downness that I feel like has been a lot of my life the last couple of years. And he's kept me even faithful to him, which is something that, I've been it's been part of my prayers for the last 25 years is that the Lord would just keep me faithful. And he's been doing that even. And he's strengthened me beyond any previous strength that I may have had. But he did that even through weakening me, through breaking me, through emptying me. My strength that I walk in today is not my strength. I have been so emptied and so just poured out over this last year, 2 years, 3 years specifically. And there's a strength and a hope and a faith and a depth that is just unlike anything that I've ever had before. But it's been through the trials. It's been through the hardships. It's been through me just feeling like you you kind of like are losing almost everything. And so that is a lot of what's been happening in this last year, 2 years, 3 years. But I look to 2023 coming up here just in a few days, and I know there's not some magical change that happens because the 2 in 2022 turns to a 3. There's no magical change that happens. That's just because a number changes. But really, these types of things, whether it's a new month or a new day or a new year, these are graces of God. He gives us these things really, I think, more as opportunities for us to sort of mentally kind of have a focused reset. And so I look at that, and I look at this as an opportunity for myself, for my family, for my friends, my extended family, my church family. And I look at that opportunity, and I am filled with faith for 2023. For myself personally, and also for our church family, and I know not everyone probably watching this is part of our church, but for myself, my family, and our church family, I'm going into 2023. We're going to be going into 2023 with a lot of things that we have hope for, but one thing is going to be our theme as a church as we look at this next year is this theme of being built up. And specifically, not just being built up, like I was just saying, not just me becoming more strengthened and all that stuff, but specifically being built up in Christ and what that means to be in Christ and being built up in Christ. Not being built up for Christ or with Christ, but being built up in Christ. And I can't unpack all of that right now in this video. That's not my intent. But that is what is going to be my personal hope and theme and goal for my year and hopefully beyond this year, but also for our church family. It's going to be about going deeper in our faith and with Jesus, being more intentional with Jesus, seeing through that then real change that happens, seeing that elusive contentment that seems to always just slip through our fingertips. I want to go not just from acceptance, but I want to have contentment. I want to see us growing in this increased joy that comes from being in Christ and experiencing our life in Christ, growing in an awe and a wonder for Jesus, and just having our hearts made alive, having a life just saturated in Christ, loving Him more and more deeply and becoming more and more overwhelmed with Him, and just beholding Him, gazing upon Him, looking at Him, just going ear to ear smile when we think about Jesus, when we're in Christ, with Christ, living in Christ. Building, from a practical standpoint, kind of building rhythms and building space and margin in our life. I don't know about you, but it just feels like margin just kind of disappears. Space and time to just rest and be, it just kind of disappears. There's a lot in this life, from kids to jobs to all kinds of things, and the margin just disappears very quickly. And so I want and need, and I think all of us probably want and need to see us to build better rhythms, better space, better margin in our life, intentional margin, so that His breath would be our breath, that His heartbeat would be our heartbeat, that is how we would live life, that we would be in Christ, attacking our distractions, the things that pull us away. I mean, when you think about the story of Mary and Martha, the two sisters that were serving Jesus, He was in their home, and Martha was doing some great things. She was serving Jesus, making food, cleaning up all that stuff, and Mary was just kind of in the living room, just sitting at the feet of Jesus, enjoying Jesus. And it's not that Martha was doing a bad thing. She was serving Jesus. That's a pretty noble thing. But at the end of the day, Jesus said to Martha, "You are distracted and anxious over many things." And He commended Mary for being with Jesus. And so I think about that and I go, how many of us are probably more like Martha than Mary? And the reality is, I think for us, if we're totally honest with ourselves, it's one thing if we're busying ourselves serving Jesus like Martha was, but I think most of us, we find ourselves distracted, not even with good things like serving Jesus, but we find ourselves distracted with just filler and just stuff. And so we're not even as noble as Martha. I know that's at least for me. I want to do better at doing away with those things and living my life more in Christ, the way that my life was designed to be. So I want to look at 2023 and learn more for myself and with us and with you what it means to be in Christ. Again, not just for Christ and his cause, though that's important, and not even just with Christ, and that's also important, but what does it mean to be in Christ and to be built up in Christ? Because those things, they're different. So I want to just see transformation, real deep transformation, going deeper and growing in who I already am because of who I am in Christ, but growing deeper in who I already have been created to be. We're already being discipled every single day. We're being transformed every single day. The question we really have to ask ourselves is, what is discipling us? What's transforming us? What's training us? Or who is training us? Who's discipling us? And then the next question we really probably should ask ourselves is, who do we want to be discipled by? What do we want to be discipled by and discipled in? What do we want to be shaped by? So for me, I look at the last 3 years specifically, whether it's politics or the news cycle, the close deaths in my life, people that have passed away, broken relationships, distractions, technology, emotions. It's all exhausting. And not all those things are inherently bad things or anything, but just it's all very exhausting. And I don't expect life to not be exhausting. We live in a fallen world. We have a mission to accomplish, but at least for me, I'm often being exhausted by the wrong things. Or maybe I could maybe say it where I'm being exhausted for the wrong reasons. That's me. I think that's probably you. We both live in the same world. I think we're all kind of, to some degree, products of our culture and our society. And so if you're anything at all like me, you relate to that. And for myself, for me, I want to take my life back. I want us to take our lives back and recover areas of our lives that have just kind of been lost to distractions, lost to the discipleship of the world, the discipleship of technology. And the crazy thing, and I'm not talking about just, throwing our phones away or anything like that, but I'm talking about taking control over the things we have control over. I'm talking about us choosing who and what disciples us and how. Us choosing the margin that we have and how we spend that time. And the crazy thing is that this kind of sounds a little radical, right? It almost sounds like, Joby's going Amish or whatever. It sounds radical, but really this is not radical. It's just about slowing down. It's about creating space, creating margin. It's about resting in Christ. It's about sitting at the feet of Jesus more often, more frequently, and more than that, honestly, just more deeply. And what I mean by even more deeply is I'm not talking about adding a bunch of things to our life. I'm talking about just going deeper into what we've already been given. So it's a matter of prioritizing our time, prioritizing our mental energy, our downtime. It's about just living life and living life to the full, not living life on empty, emotional emptiness, spiritual emptiness. So I've got a lot more that I can't wait to explore, particularly with any of you who are part of our church family. Our month of January is going to be spent diving into this on our Sundays, but also not just through January. I'm going to just be sharing with all of us a lot of other ways. I'm hoping that we can start sort of aiming to be built up in Christ. There'll be some corporate things we'll kind of hopefully do together collectively, but then a lot of it is just it's yours and my responsibility to kind of build basically like a trellis so that this vine, this growth can actually occur in our life, creating a trellis so that we can actually be built up in Christ. So some things will be corporate that we kind of do together as a church family, but a lot of these things is going to be up to you to really make those decisions to say, I want to take my life back. I want to steward this life for the sake of Christ. I want to be built up in Christ. I can't do that for you. Your church family can't do that for you. We help each other. We spur each other on. So some of these things will be corporate family things we'll do, but a lot of it is just going to be you and Jesus. It's going to be you being Mary, sitting at the feet of Jesus and kind of figuring out, fumbling through life, figuring out, how do I do that? How do I go deeper in my life in Christ? So for those of you who are outside of our church family, maybe you just even watch our sermons over the next month of January 2023. Maybe it just kind of gives you a little bit of a kickstart to your year or whatever. But regardless of whether you're part of our church or not, I know that for myself, and I think that a lot of you probably are going to relate to this, I don't just want this, but I know that I need this. And I think we probably all do. And I want you to do this for your sake, for your joy, for your peace, for your just freedom of mind. And hopefully, and for those of you who are part of our church family, I want to do this with you. I want to go on this journey with you, with me, with my family. I'm excited for 2023. I'm excited for growth. I'm excited for change. I'm excited for depth. Again, not adding more to my life, but going deeper in Christ. So that's what I am looking forward to. And so much of this deep desire, this excitement, this joy for this really has been just fruit of my last year, my last 2 years, my last 3 years. And I am thankful. I'm not necessarily thankful for all the tough, hard things, the bad things that have happened, but I'm thankful for the way that God has brought them into my life on purpose and for a purpose. And I'm seeing at least bits and pieces of all those things. And I don't know. It's hard for me to put into words, but I'm very faith-filled. I'm very hope-filled. And I've just been very joy-filled amidst lots of pain and difficulty and sorrows and confusion and upside-downness. God's economy is just weird. It's bizarre. I don't understand it, but I'm thankful for it. So I am looking forward to 2023. I'm thankful for 2022, but I'm also glad to see it be put behind me. And again, I know that there's nothing magical that happens by a number change. It doesn't mean that 2023 might it's not necessarily going to not have any of its own tragedies or hardships. It could be even more difficult than 2022. I can't control that stuff, but what I can, at least in part, control is how I respond to that, what I do internally, how I live out my life internally, at very least, and then how that affects the way I respond even externally. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I hope you're excited and desiring the same things. For those of you who are part of our church family, I hope you're excited for this because I want to do this with you guys. So hope that you're able to make it out January 1st to kick off our year. Sunday morning, we have our annual Say So Sunday, which is just a fantastic way to kind of finish and start a year. And then starting on January 8th, we'll spend the rest of that month looking at the things that I just shared with you guys. So have a good New Year celebration. Be safe. Don't stay up too late because we're going to get together on Sunday morning, January 1st, whether it's with your church family, if it's Life Mission, or your own church family. Don't stay up late. Get to church. Start off your new year with your church family, worshiping Jesus. He is worth it. Just get into bed at 12:01. Stay up late. Welcome the new year, and then get to bed so you can be at church with your church family the next morning. So God bless you guys. Happy New Year, and I will see you soon.